Broncos country, I got to get this off my chest regarding the possible running backs the Denver Broncos could take in this year's NFL draft. Obviously, the pipe dream is Ashton Jeanty, but what happens when he's inevitably gone by the time the Broncos pick? Should they use a first round pick on that next best running back that's available, or should they wait? Y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like and subscribe. But yeah, I had to get this off my chest, especially, guys I'm a big fan of, Cecil. And maybe Mace was talking about this too, but Cecil Lammy was talking about this and about how, hey, maybe Omarion Hampton is that guy. He has been kind of the consensus number 2 running back in this year's big board, like on all the draft sites. And guys, I got to be honest, I'm having trouble seeing it. Now, I was asking some of my friends, guys, can you help me understand why Omarion Hampton just seems to be in like a tier of his own when it comes to these guys? And, Cameron Parker, friend of the show, he chimed in, see you, Andy, talking about, well, Omarion Hampton, he's got that 3-down skill set. He can pass protect, he can catch. I mean, 38 reception is absolutely fantastic. Obviously 6'1", 220, big guy. But just because, and this is my like counter punch to that, just because he showed this and other guys didn't get that workload in college doesn't mean that they can't do the same thing in the NFL given the same situation, right? And when I'm looking at Omarion Hampton, obviously there's a lot to be enthralled about. You love his contact balance, his yards after contact, all of that. Again, I feel like he kind of reminds me a little bit of a Najee Harris in a way or two. But what's interesting to me is that I feel like we can get a guy like that, such as Najee Harris, is actually available in free agency. I don't know if using a pick 20 on Omarion Hampton is really worth it when you go down the line. Cam Skattebo, almost 300 attempts on the year. Granted, play more games than Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton, 281 attempts, shown that workload. Dylan Sampson, a guy that I think we might have some questions on if he could be like a 3-down back or whatever. 258 attempts. Kaleb Johnson, who I'm a really big fan of, 240 attempts, so way less than those guys. I think Iowa had less drives, but he put up 6.4 yards per carry, just facing absolutely stacked boxes the entire year because they had no passing. They do not, incorporate the forward pass into their offense, right? TreVeyon Henderson with Ohio State, 145 attempts. That's it. Quinshon Judkins, only 193 attempts. And then we'll get to guys like, Devin Neal, 218. I think is still adequately sized at 5'11", 215. And this is my thing, is like, why waste a pick 20 on somebody like Omarion Hampton? Because he had that workload in college, when I feel like if Quinshon Judkins had the entire room to himself at Ohio State, I think you would have seen him do that same thing. But I will say, guys, to get to my headline, I don't want the Broncos to use pick 20 on a running back. No, I don't. Because again, I feel like as you get down this list, there are plenty of guys who are capable of profiling as a 3-down back. But here's my one exception. Unless you believe TreVeyon Henderson is that next Jahmyr Gibbs, you got to take him. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs isn't a 3-down back with the Detroit Lions. He's part of the Sonic and Knuckles crew, right? He's the Sonic to David Montgomery's Knuckles. Could Audric Estime be those Knuckles? Could somebody like Najee Harris sign in free agency be our Knuckles? And then we got TreVeyon Henderson as Sonic. That would be really great. But TreVeyon Henderson, if Sean Payton in the Denver Broncos front office evaluate TreVeyon Henderson of truly being a special elite talent with breakaway play ability every time he touches the ball, whether that's off of a carry in the backfield or a pass out in the flat or running a Texas route over the middle, he should be the guy. If he truly is that guy, you take him. Remember, a lot of people make fun of the Detroit Lions for using like a top 15 pick on Jahmyr Gibbs. I was one of them. I People were talking about him as being a second round pick, kind of similar to TreVeyon Henderson, a guy that might not have that 3-down skill set, but incredibly elusive. We'll see here at the combine what he runs. But if he chooses to run, I'm not even keeping up with that stuff. But if he runs, I'm sure he's going to run a very fast time. And I think that he has a dynamic playmaking ability that is different. It's on a whole other level in terms of just the agility, the burst, the straight line speed than what some of these other running backs have. Some of these guys I still feel like have very good speed, such as Quinshon Judkins, Kaleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton. But I don't think that TreVeyon Henderson's, or I don't think that they have the same speed as TreVeyon Henderson. He has a whole other gear to go than those guys. Maybe Dylan Sampson with a little bit of an exception to that. But again, I feel like in short spaces too, TreVeyon is quicker than Dylan Sampson. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. If we end up picking any of these guys, I'm going to be a happy camper. I really am. Now, if they are picked in the first round, I could be a little upset aside from somebody like TreVeyon Henderson, because again, I feel like Kaleb Johnson, theoretically, you can get him after Omarion Hampton. I feel like, hey, if you put him on Boise State, don't you think he could do something similar to Ashton Jeanty, if not more, right? I know that that's a controversial opinion, but I thought he was fantastic this year. Devin Neal, he's been great. Even RJ Harvey, maybe not as clean overall with his entire game, but has the size you want in terms of weight, maybe a little small, but 5'9". I don't think that that's totally a bad thing. 231 carries on the year, explosive playmaker. He can receive out of the backfield too. Even a guy like DJ Gins, I think, would be really interesting. But also, guys, when you're talking about scarcity of position, there are other positions that I think as like a premium value should take precedent over something like running back in the first round. So I'm going to show you guys like a couple different scenarios of what could happen if, we decide not to go in that route. Check this out. Let's say Derek Harmon falls to us at 20. Now, this could be Walter Nolan because of his character concerns. Whatever those are, hey, I'd be thrilled getting either one of those talents there at 20. Drafting Jaden Higgins, Mason Taylor. Brashard Smith was a guy, I believe, that met with the Broncos either today or yesterday that I think, he had well over 200 carries this past year at SMU. He has a receiver background. When he was at, where was he at? Florida before this? I'm trying to remember. Miami. He had 232 carries this year, 41 receptions. He's a guy that I think can profile as a starting running back down the line in the NFL. I think he can do it. Then we're able to enforce the trenches. And even getting a guy like Luke Lachey, who could be a little bit of a sleeper because, again, Iowa didn't really throw the ball. But he seemed to really impress during the East-West Shrine Bowl that entire week. But also, guys, we could see this happen, which I think the betting favorite right now is something that happens like this, where you go tight end, Colston Loveland, then you go and get your running back that's there at 52. Now in this exercise, TreVeyon Henderson and a few other guys are still available. I doubt that happens, but you could go and get a guy like Quinshon Judkins, who I think can actually be a 3-down back in the NFL. Jamari Caldwell, getting him at nose tackle. I think that would be fantastic. Getting a Billy Bowman in the 4th round from Oklahoma. And then going double dipping on the running backs with Clint Allen or Jake Majors. And then I threw Ty Robinson in here because, I doubt he probably goes a little bit higher than pick 209, but he measured great at the combine. And I think he's done a lot to increase his stock over the last month or so. I'd be thrilled to get him on the D-line with somebody like Caldwell or Derek Harmon. Now, I guess the one thing that I forgot is doing a mock draft. If we decide to, go and get our guy TreVeyon Henderson in the first round. So let's just see how that shakes out. But again, guys, to summarize, I think TreVeyon has a unique ability apart from the rest of these running backs to really be a big time home run hitter, kind of similar to Jahmyr Gibbs. And if he's truly that special, oh man, there's no way Shamar Turner's gonna fall the way to 52, man. What is going on here? But yeah, Josh Farmer, no thank you. We could go Omar Norman Lott, who's very interesting. Jordan Birch, I know it's edge, but that could be interesting. But let's go with Jaden Higgins, man. This is a Jaden Higgins draft. I think he could be a truly special kind of guy. We could go Elijah Arroyo there in the third round. Nick Amenwari is not going to be available come the third round, but maybe we go and get a guy like Deion Walker in the third round. We're able to go get a tight end, maybe. Oh, man, all my tight ends are taken. We'll go get Gadsden later on, who I think could be really interesting. But yeah, we can go get a guy like Riley Mills, who I think would be a lot of fun to have on the line as well. Jake Majors, an interior lineman. And then let's fill it out with another tight end here, Rondé Gatson. I think that would be great. And then screw it, we'll go with Efton Chisholm, Marquee Sports' guy right there. Really filling it out. But yeah, F, whatever. But I think if you do decide to go TreVeyon, it would be pretty fun to see how the rest of the draft would pan out. Maybe you end up going tight end there in the second round. You just kind of flip-flop what's to be expected instead of going tight end then running back. But I do think defensive line needs to be a priority in this draft. It's too good. I think Cecil and Mace also brought this up, how it's like double the guys from last year, like that were defensive linemen invited to the combine. They've had double of those guys at the combine this year. It's like close to 45 guys, I think. Insane. So it would be good to double dip at that position if possible. But that's kind of how I feel, man. Like if you're just wanting a guy that can profile as a workhorse, you can get that on day 2 at another point, maybe even early day 3, depending on how the board ends up falling. To me, if you're going to use that pick, have him at least be like the fastest guy out of that position, right? If not one of the fastest. So, oh, guys, I don't even know. Oh, was this even sharing? Man, was this even sharing? Guys, I'm so sorry. That's what happens when I go live. But dang. Sorry, guys. But that's how I feel about the whole thing. I'll get to a few of your comments now. Thank you for your patience. Did court get extended, said David? I don't think so. At least I have not seen that on Twitter. And I know DNVR has talked about the idea of him getting extended, as many of our channels have. But the more we get into it, I do wonder if we're just going to have him play out this last year. Should draft a tight end at 20. I think right now Colston Loveland is my pick. Either Colston Loveland or defensive line, I would be really, really happy with. Zach Phillips saying first 4 picks, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Now, that would be interesting. The one caveat I'll say is that I think we're going to I just got this feeling that we'll make a nice signing at both the tight end position and running back position in free agency, to where I just don't know if we'll go in that direction. Now, if we fail to sign anybody, worth a crap at the tight end position in free agency, maybe that could happen. But man, whether it's Dowdle or again, 1,000-yard rusher, I thought he looked good. Rico Dowdle this year, or Najee Harris. Yeah, I don't know if we go in that direction, but It would pain me. I would be pretty upset if we didn't use our first 4 picks, at least one of those, on a defensive lineman. Kodiak, hope you're doing well. Thank you for going live. I'm at the DMV right now, and it's absolutely painful. Prayers to you, man. Prayers to you. That sucks. Truly just depends if Warren and Jeanty are there. Yeah, I mean, if Warren and Jeanty are there, man, that's going to be crazy. Probably just go with Jeanty. But man, Tyler Warren's nice too. I think Cam Skattebo might fall in this year's draft, guys, because he's already 23. A lot of these other running backs are way younger than him, and I think he could be a realistic option there in the second or third round for us. But we'll have to see. Broncos met with him as well. There'd be other running backs that I would want above him, but I won't be upset if he ends up being that pick somewhere. But yeah, if Warren and Jeanty are available, those guys have to take priority. I just don't think that it's going to be the case. We'll have to see. Man, it would be great to go spend big on defense, and I think we can, like at safety and at linebacker. On defensive line, it's a much better place to get defensive linemen in the draft this year than compared to free agency. So that's why I think it would be really good to go get a guy or two in this year's draft. But you can shore up, like in those mock drafts, I don't think I had like a linebacker picked at all. You could shore that up through free agency. You could bring in a guy like Billy Bowman that could profile eventually as a starter, but might take a year or two to be ready for that. So, yeah, you can go get a guy in free agency at those positions. I think that would be great. And my hope is that we don't have any glaring needs come draft time, so we can just go with best player available. But that's kind of how I feel about things, guys. I'm going to get out of here again. Thank you so much for your time. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Am I right or wrong on this? Is TreVeyon Henderson worth being an exception for pick 20 if he truly is that guy? Y'all let me know. Have a wonderful weekend. Go Broncos.